Welcome to the Fanatical Elfz Show, part of the Elfz Network. We are a bunch of wild and crazy Cleveland Browns fans, bringing you all the latest in Browns news. Tune in now. Well, we're back. It's a Thursday night. It's cold here in the Buckeye States. Hope it's warmer where you're at. We'll start with the weather report. Welcome, Sam. How are you doing down there in Dallas, Texas?
Good. It's been cold. I was outside on last Saturday. What's last Saturday? This week's Saturday. A day. It existed. Saturday. I think it was the 15th. Yeah, it was the 15th. And it was about 75, 80 degrees at noon, and it dropped to about 10 to 15 degrees by nighttime. So it was, I think it was a little more. I think it was like 20 degrees. But it's cold. It's been cold, but it warms back up to like 71 by Saturday. So we're just waiting and out, trying not to freeze and die.
I like the jersey. Can we see that?
Yeah, this is Nick Chubb.
That's your new Nick
Chubb.
There
you go. Awesome.
Signature's on the back. I can't really show it right now. I guess I could try, but I'm not going to. It's on the back of the jersey. I can't really, and my camera isn't great, so I can't show it, but it's somewhere on the 4, I believe.
Yes, that's sweet. Signed Nick Chubb jersey. Very cool. Steve, Gil, Dog Pound South campers. How are you this evening?
Good evening, Dog Pound South campers. And all the ships at sea. But anyway, yeah, I agree, Samuel. It was like 67 on Saturday, and we had storms and massive flooding north of us, and then the temperature dropped, and then Tuesday to Wednesday over 2 inches of snow, and right now it's 18, feels like 9 outside, and by Monday it'll be in the 60s.
Just all over the place.
It's crazy, man. Crazy.
Well, tonight we're all staying warm. Shout out to my friends and old friends and family there in Wichita, Kansas. I was telling these guys off air, they've had all week off because they had the snow early part of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they've been ice cold like many of us. They broke a huge record tonight, -8 degrees and wind chills -20 something. So I'm sure those kids are enjoying their school days off, but
anywho's a what's it?
Yeah. So, we're in that like lull where, Steve, you talked the silly season, and I know you've written an article.
About to get even sillier.
Yes.
When all the agents and teams start traveling to Indy on Sunday.
Okay. Tell us about
the combine starts Monday, but they all start traveling up there.
So let's just start with that, because we got the combine and a lot of things that are going to be, we're going to be watching, players and everything. Myles Garrett, let's start with Myles, just because, Myles Garrett requested a trade, 2 weeks ago, and there hasn't been much conversation, or at least we haven't heard much other than we know that Myles has been going on this thing that he's, this tour of trying
to quit Super Bowl Sunday. That was the last time anybody's heard from Myles. So
that's been a while.
Maybe he's getting smart. Yeah, it was February 9th. So
yes. So there's going to probably be conversations at the combine about, draft the players and, the college kids, but there's certainly going to be probably conversations behind closed doors or amongst other teams talking to the Browns.
You mean people are going to illegal tamper? I hate to tell you this, but they're probably already talking.
Yes. Do you feel, both of you guys, Steve, I'll start with you. My feeling, what you've shared before, is that Andrew Berry is not going to budge, and that they don't have to, and that Garrett will be coming back. They'll offer him a massive contract, but you still hear other analysts and other pundits and people out there in the sports world saying that it's not about the money for Myles. It's about winning, and that he is.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
Where do you think? Tell us what you think.
Oh, come on. I mean, like I said on my podcast, they are not the Browns front office is not going to put the franchise in a financial noose and be crappy for the next 2 years. Jimmy Haslam right now is against trading Myles Garrett, and as long as he stays that way, then it ain't gonna happen. Andrew Berry just doesn't do things without the guy who signs the checks permission. I just can't see it happening. Financially, I can't see it happening. And even though you got people out saying, well, they can wait till after June 2nd. Well, then you don't get a 2025 draft pick. You're dealing with 2026 draft picks. And who knows what you're going to get. If last year you made a deal with the Washington Commanders for a first-round pick, and then you ended up this year getting the 29th pick, I'm sure you would be extremely disappointed. So, that's a crapshoot, as is selecting a quarterback in the draft, a crapshoot. So, I just can't see it.
Okay.
And I don't care what anybody says.
I'm going to come back. I want to come back.
And the voices in your head are not sources.
I know you touched on that with the commentary before. Like, who was that commented? You said sources. I saw that you made a statement on social media, Steve, about that. Who were you referencing? There was a football guy that you were saying.
It's Todd McShay.
Oh, okay.
Todd McShay, multiple sources have told him that the Browns are not going to take a quarterback at number 2. Nice try. Front office doesn't leak. So I don't know what the multiple sources he is talking to. Mostly himself, probably.
Okay. Sam, what do you think with this whole Myles situation? Steve's kind of shared his thoughts. Where are you at with everything right now?
Well, I mean, we haven't seen anything happen since he announced the trade, really.
Right.
One, illegal tampering is really just legal tampering, but you have to be a little bit more secretive of it. Most teams, especially in big name trades, probably are talking to each other in some sort of a capacity. But, I mean, Myles Garrett, he requested a trade. He wants out. You're going to have to you don't want Myles Garrett to sit on your payroll and just sit on the bench and do nothing for the entire season because you decided not to trade him. Right now, you're just gonna have to wait and see what happens because there's nothing the front office is gonna be quiet about it. Obviously, you can't hear anything from them, so you're just gonna have to wait and see really what happens with Myles Garrett, where he goes, if he goes, how this all is gonna work. And really, if you want to just say, let's say we trade him away immediately. Even if we didn't trade him away, we'd still need a second edge, right? We still need another edge. So you're not changing your game plan a whole lot because you still need that edge. You just need 2 of them now. But
Alex Wright coming back? Is Alex Wright going to be healthy? Okay.
Yeah. He can play
right now it's just
an edge.
Yes. Was he going to be coming into year 3? I believe from Alex Wright. This would be his 3rd season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always liked
the kid. You got Isaiah McGuire, who played well last year.
Very much so.
The big question mark is Okoronkwo. Do you really want to bring him back or not?
Hey,
we'll find that out soon.
Taki got released, and there was a little bit of discussion of would the Browns be interested in bringing him back. Just no. Steve is shaking his head. No. By the way, thank you for following us, watching us tonight live. We're on YouTube, the X, Facebook. Thank you again for listening to us later. If you do on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your podcast, you can type in Cleveland Browns podcast, or you can type in Fanatical Elfz Network, part of Fans First, part of what did I say? Fans First, Fanatical Elfz. Okay. Do we have enough money to get Abdul and a quarterback? Posh, thank you for watching tonight.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they're going to do a bunch of. I always say the salary cap is easy to manipulate, but difficult to maintain if you don't know what you're doing. They know what they're doing. It's sustainable. I mean,
but they're
can
not
create.
talking, and they're so hush hush, like you say, Steve, that I think it just
Yeah,
drives the fan base
I love it.
absolutely bananas, and
I love it.
that's where we're at right now because
Oh yeah, I know. You want to go
it,
back to John Dorsey leaking that Condoleezza Rice was going to be the next head coach, so he could find who they might take at quarterback
but
between Sam
it's just
Darnold and Baker Mayfield.
soap operas aren't fun when you don't have the full participation of the organization, and
This
that's
is
what we're
football.
missing
It's
right
not
now.
a soap opera.
Well, I know, but that's where Browns fans have been so used to and accustomed to soap operas since this team has come back since '99.
And what did it get you?
Well, nothing, but we haven't gotten a lot from Kevin Stefanski. So let me bring this up because this was brought up by Rod Bloom and his brother
Well,
Jeff.
to answer the question, first
Yeah,
I
okay.
answer.
Okay.
If
Yes.
they take Abdul Carter at number 2, it's a tier system.
Yeah.
So he'll be a rookie, and yes, they'll have the money to spend on Abdul Carter. As for the quarterback, it depends on what veteran they get in free agency. They can do, I think the veteran minimum is I can't remember, 1.255 or somewhere around that for the first year. So yeah, they'll afford it. So Posh, great question though.
So Rod and his brother Jeff, they had on their friend of theirs, Bill, who writes for the Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders as well. I write for them too, and he was their guest, and they were the idea about where we're at. I know, Steve, what your reaction will be to this, but I would like you can share your outward take to this. And Sam? Well, okay, so they're basically saying now Rod wasn't, but his brother Jeff, and Rod, if you're watching this or listen to us later, their suggestion at the beginning of their podcast was that the Browns aren't going to outwardly tell you this, or they're not going to show this to you, and they're not going to go into the season with the objective of tanking. But there's a lot of people out there that, let's say that Miles somehow does get traded. I'm not saying he is, but let's say that they do that. With that in mind, they're suggesting that the Browns are at some point they will go into this more strategically, getting into the season and tank. They're not going to say that they're tanking, but they just feel like this is where we're going. Part of it is, I think Bill, he doesn't like Andrew Berry, and Steve, I think you and I talked about this before we went on air about it. Can you elaborate? I mean, where do you feel? I mean, you don't feel that they're going to tank. I don't think or there's not going to be a lot of conversation. We're not going to have a lot of stuff to talk about.
If Jimmy Haslam says, all right, I'm tired of this, trade him, then yeah, they're in full rebuild. That's the only thing that can happen. I mean, $36 million dead cap hit, and the salary that he's still got on his contract escalates. That's just going to destroy him. I don't care. It's great that the teams are getting extra TV money to put on the salary cap, but it still means a total rebuild. So if that's what you want, I guarantee you, if Jimmy Haslam says trade Myles Garrett, Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are going to say to him, all right, we'll do it, but we don't get fired for the next 2 years. And he'll go along with it. So sorry, folks who don't like Stefanski and Andrew Berry. If they trade Myles Garrett, they're probably staying until they right the ship in 2027.
Sam,
why would you want that? Why would you want 1-31 again? That makes no sense. Just to be right about someone you don't like. That's insane.
So this past year, well, Sam, let me get your thoughts on that.
I mean, realistically, you're rebuilding until you get a franchise quarterback, because you can't. You can. It's just extremely difficult to win titles in modern NFL without a top tier quarterback. It happens. It's possible. However, you need a great quarterback, and you need a lot of things to work together at once for your team to work. I mean, we saw what happened with the Eagles last year, 2 years ago, when they just kind of fell apart at the end of the season. They had a Super Bowl caliber team. They had the parts, but the parts weren't connected properly. It's like sticking the puzzle pieces in the wrong slots. you can cram as hard as you want. If they don't connect, the puzzle isn't going to come together. So
Yeah.
what you need to do is, realistically, you're in a rebuild until you get a franchise quarterback. You're going to do everything in your power to get that franchise quarterback, which generally includes getting a good running back, getting a good offensive line, wide receivers, defense, things like that. Right now, I don't know really what's going to happen. I do think we're going to be, you don't tank most of the time. You don't tell your players, hey, we're going to tank, because that breaks your locker room, because you're telling them basically, hey, we don't think you're good enough to perform at a level where we can win and compete. And so the players aren't going to like that. So you don't outwardly tell anyone you're going to tank, but you make small decisions. You do little things, and that kind of tanks your games. And in the NFL, it's hard to tank. You look at the Giants, they performed great, they performed great at tanking, and then blew their final game or second final game and ended up losing to, like, where are they now? Like 5-6, the Giants?
They're 3.
3.
Okay. So they blew their chance at a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, you never know. But tanking is hard, especially in the NFL, and especially keeping your locker room intact. But if they trade Myles Garrett, yeah, you're going to suck for a while. And unfortunately, even if you keep him, there's no guarantee you're going to perform well either way. You have a running back who can't stay healthy, broken offensive line occasionally. Your defense is up and down, and your quarterback is, who knows what's going on there. So unfortunately, you're just not going to be a good team regardless of what you seem to do right now.
Well, let's talk about quarterbacks. Yeah, Steve.
Let's look at the Super Bowl. The Chiefs have arguably a franchise quarterback that they stumbled on. The year before, they wanted to trade up and get Paxton Lynch. Remember Paxton Lynch? They couldn't get him. So the following year, they traded up and got
Patrick Mahomes.
Pat Mahomes.
I do remember that.
When he plays great, he lifts his team up, and they play great. On the other side, Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts, a second-round quarterback, his team lifted him up. And there's, you got your different styles in the Super Bowl. So do you go with that one guy who has to be playing out of his mind to win the Super Bowl, or do you go with the guy who plays good enough, but his fellow teammates, especially that defense, lift the entire team up? So that's what you got to look for in an NFL quarterback.
Okay, but the Browns, like we're talking about franchise quarterbacks, there's only honestly, since '99, there's been one, Baker Mayfield, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think he was a franchise quarterback, but go ahead. When have we had we have not had a franchise quarterback, and every year we talk about franchise quarterback. The only franchise quarterback we've had was Bernie Kosar.
And there's some stat out there too that I've read, and I think where the Browns have only drafted, and we'll get into the draft here probably after the break. They've only drafted like 3 quarterbacks in the top 10 in the history of the franchise, going way back. So they've 2. Yeah. So they've
only drafted in the top 10 5 times.
Like a quarterback.
I got into an argument with somebody on Twitter, so I Googled.
Yeah.
Tim Couch and Baker Mayfield.
Yes. So
that's it.
But I guess, see, this is where there's just this conversation, like what you just said. The Browns have tried it twice and been unsuccessful. I mean, Baker brought us some relevance for a while, but then we traded him. And I guess it's just like, okay,
Tim Couch would have been a lot better if it wasn't the NFL didn't screw the Browns with that whole expansion draft and the players they can choose. They saw the mistake they made with the Carolina and Jacksonville, when after 2 years of getting an expansion franchise, they were both competitive and making the playoffs. So they didn't want that to happen again. So they left available to the Browns in that little expansion draft not that many great players.
Yeah.
So Tim Couch had no offensive line. He had his moments. He made, under Butch, they got to the playoffs. So, if Tim Couch had a better team around him, I think he would have done better.
But we weren't given much of an opportunity. Situation. Yes. Hey, let's pause for a quick break here on the Fanatical Elfz Network. We'll be right back after Steve coughs. Hey, we're back here on the Fanatical Elfz show. It's a Thursday night. We've got Sam the Man down there in Dallas, Texas, and we got Steve Gill up there in Nashville, Tennessee. Hello, Dog Pound South campers. Sam does his Browns breakdowns every week. Make sure to tune into those. Sam, did you publish any shows that I missed? Because Sam's bad at texting me.
I am horrible at texting, remembering to text. I have not. I've been busy with church camp, and then I have been
church
tired
camp.
from
We
that.
can't have church camp. We're a Cleveland Browns podcast.
Yeah, I prayed for the Browns. I'm like, please, just one Super Bowl.
Your prayers aren't. No. That's good. I've been praying since I was about your age too, Sam.
It really hasn't worked. The Browns
no,
still
not
suck.
yet. But there's always, we always have that, hope every year. Okay, so this draft. So we're talking quarterbacks earlier, and the Browns have really only selected 2. And Steve, you said you got into this discussion with somebody online about it. I guess my thing is, okay, so going now to this draft, the constant conversation has been about the 2 quarterbacks at the top of the draft list, Cam Ward and Shadir Sanders. But many people, there's a mixed bag of analysis on this. Some are saying that neither one of these guys would be drafted in the first round, or at least not in the top 10. But because of this is a weak quarterback group, they're kind of being forced in here. So do either of you really like one of these guys and more than the other? And can you there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. Supposedly people are saying that this is all clutter, and the Browns are being quiet so that we're just all speculating for the next 60 days until the draft. Do either one of you guys like these guys? I do. I like Shadir Sanders. I think his pocket presence, his accuracy, his decision-making, I would feel good if they drafted him and be optimistic. Even with going into a season with a rookie, I would be optimistic as a Browns fan. So that's where I'm at with those 2. Steve, what about you? No.
Not at the number 2 pick. Sorry. If these guys came out last year and 6 quarterbacks were taken, I think, to the number 12.
Yeah.
These 2 would be somewhere maybe before Bo Nix and probably after Bo Nix. I don't see the I don't understand you got to take a quarterback because you need a quarterback mentality.
Well, what about the idea that what I just said? But and I know that this isn't like magic, but basically that state of thinking is, if we take him in the first round, the Browns have never taken a quarterback in the first round, or rarely. So why don't we just take a chance? Do it.
2 out of 5 times they've taken a quarterback in the top 10.
2 out of what?
2 out of 5.
2 out of 5 times that they've.
But then we're going back to 1954 was the first time they had a top 10 pick. Because they were always winning back then.
Well, yes. Good.
But I don't see it. I see other teams that have made this mistake. The Bears, they took Mitch Trubisky. Then they didn't like Mitch Trubisky, so then they took Justin Fields. Oh, he didn't enter. Now they're on Caleb Williams, and lit up the NFL. No, you look at the Arizona Cardinals, who have since 2018 have been worse than the Browns. They take Josh Rosen, the chosen one. Then the coach gets fired. They trade Rosen to Miami, never to be heard from again. Then they get Kyler Murray. And what has he done?
Nothing.
Right. And so why I don't understand the reasoning. If you're at number 2, you have to take a quarterback. No, you don't.
Right.
Everybody complains about this roster. This is essentially the same roster that won 11 games in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get it.
Okay.
I just don't get it.
We'll come back. I want to keep talking about quarterbacks, but Sam, what about you? Do you like either of these guys, Cam or Shadir?
A few things I'd like to add with Steve. I mean, for last year, the problem isn't that they're bad enough that they're going to fall behind people. It's that who knows what they would have been last year, because They might have been ranked higher, they might have been ranked lower, but the problem is there was so much talent that obviously they're going to fall back because people are going to want those people ahead of them, and someone's going to have to go ahead of them. They're obviously not number one picks. And then Caleb, will anyone going to the Bears, you're basically just screwed. You might as well quit at that point. Bears don't know how to build a football team. They've tried.
Yeah.
Same with the Panthers.
And
Unfortunately,
the Jets.
Unfortunately, there's a reason the Panthers got the number one pick. There's a reason the Bears got the number one pick. There's a reason all these things happen, and that's because their team sucks. And
There's
so,
a reason
unfortunately,
the Titans got the number one pick.
yeah, and the Titans don't have anything really. And so, if you get drafted to the Titans, you're not going to a good situation. So you're not going to be performing at the highest of levels you could because you don't have a good team around you to support you. Now, for the Browns, we do have a decent team. Honestly, I think we have a good team. We have a great wide.
We were 3-14 last year,
core.
Sam. We weren't good. We were 3-14.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is we have a decent team. I think our defense, we've seen our defense play the best in the league. We've seen our offensive line, it's up and down. It's injuries that really hurt. And then our running back, when he's healthy, which he's never healthy anymore, apparently, he's great. And wide receivers is young and performing pretty well. I think you can't look at wide receiver numbers from last year because we had no quarterback that could perform. And so, because receiver and
but what about Winston?
obviously,
See, I'm not going to get go down that line, but okay. Sorry,
yeah,
Sam.
right
please
now,
Yeah.
right now, I mean, you could flip a coin. You flip pick heads be Shadur Sanders, Cam Ward be tails. You flip the coin. If it's heads, then Cam Ward, you pick Shadur Sanders, and then Cam Ward is going to be the great quarterback. You get tails, then Shadur Sanders is going to be the good quarterback. You're not going to pick the right one. It never seems to happen, unfortunately. And it's going to fall. The Titans are going to pick Cam Ward and win the Super Bowl in 3 years, and Shadur Sanders is going to be a bust. Or you draft Cam Ward, and the same thing happens. And so right now, why not, right? Why not take the risk? Your team is falling apart in certain areas. If you trade away Myles Garrett, you're going to have all of your good defensive players gone. Your running back can't play more than 4 games a year. Your quarterback situation is completely up in the air. Might as well waste the number 2 pick, because even if you draft Abdul Carter and he turns into a Myles Garrett, you're not going to have a quarterback. You're not going to have an offensive line. You're not going to have anyone to actually make the team happen. So use the pick. If it fails, it fails.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's just the nature of the NFL. There's not really any way to get around that.
It's good. Yeah. So let's continue to talk about quarterbacks. Take those 2 guys out of the equation. If the Browns don't take, or I just want to know, of the quarterbacks that are out there in the draft, who do you want? You know, who are your top 2 guys for you guys that you really would want the Browns to go after? Steve, why don't we start with you? What are the 2 guys that you?
Well, I hear a lot of buzz, and you'll hear it other teams too. Jackson Dart. I personally don't think he's a first-round draft pick.
But you want him.
I wouldn't mind taking. I think he could fall to the 3rd. What you're looking for, if you're going to sign a free agent quarterback, if Kirk Cousins gets released, or they go the Daniel Jones route, then you're going to take a quarterback later. You're going to have somebody who can sit on the bench. I keep saying this. Their quarterback room is going to be veteran starter, veteran backup, draft pick. That's their quarterback room, in my opinion. That's what I think is going to happen. So you gotta pick your spot to take a quarterback.
Anybody else?
I wouldn't mind Jackson Dart. I wouldn't mind Will Howard later. I wouldn't mind the kid from Memphis who nobody talks about. If you watch the last 2 minutes of the Senior Bowl, you saw exactly what kind of guy he was. Memphis went 11-2 this year and beat Florida State. So, and he's big. The kid from Indiana, the kid from Louisville. I mean, these guys are all going to throw at the combine. So you're going to find out about them. And then all these so-called expert draft analysts are going to go, oh, he's my dark horse to make the first round.
Yeah. Okay.
You can find a very good quarterback, somebody who can come in after sitting on the bench and learning. And start after the free agent leaves.
Sam, you got anybody else outside of what Steve suggested? I think all those.
I know it's a weird. I wouldn't say weird, but I honestly feel like Quinn Ewers could be a good performer. I would say he's a quote underdog pick where people aren't sleeping on him, but he is a quarterback who could perform decently in the NFL. He has some problems mentally, not like he just sometimes doesn't play his plays properly and has some problems. He has got a cannon for an arm. He's a big dude. I think he does have the physical features of a solid quarterback. He just needs a little bit of training. And thankfully, now it's not perfect. We've seen it before, but mental problems when you're playing a quarterback are much more fixable than a physical problem. If you have a weak arm, you're not unweakening your arm. That's just something you're stuck with. If you're slow, you're not going to get any faster. I mean, we saw that with Tom Brady. But
well, I disagree though. I think the mental thing is hard to break too, though. I don't.
It's hard to break, but it's definitely easier to break than if you can't throw the ball.
Deshaun Watson.
I think coming into a team like this, he's got a decent wide receiver core around him. He's not like going to be going into something like a Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce kind of team back in the, like 2021s or whenever Tyreek Hill was playing his best with the Chiefs. Yeah. But he's got someone there, and the defense, maybe invigorated by finally having a quarterback, might play a little bit better. But I think Quinn Ewers could be a good pick. He's a big dude.
You've mentioned that before,
if I'm not mistaken, Quinn Ewers was the highest rated high school prospect of all time, I think. And so clearly he had to do something in high school to perform. High school's weird. You can't really judge it very well because it's so very, same with college, but why not take a shot on him if he goes mid-second? You know, you have a high second-round pick, I know. But if you want to drop back, if you want to move around, you might secure a pick by trading away your first if you end up doing that. Okay. Go for it. Put him on the bench, and you can give him a year to train it out. If you realize, wow, this guy's kind of terrible, you can just be disappointed you lost your mid-second-round pick. But that's just my idea. I think Quinn Ewers could be a decent idea.
Steve, anything else on that topic? I was going to roll into... Okay.
Just remember, Jalen Hurts was a second-round quarterback, and now he's a Super Bowl champion.
Absolutely. Shout out to the Cavaliers.
Kenny Pickett has a Super Bowl ring as a backup. And I think Quinn Ewers' mental capacity is a little weak right now because he got bit slapped by the Buckeyes.
Well, I'll tell you the other guy that was brought up. I was listening to Rod and Jeff talking, and that one, the guy Bill brought up. The kid out of Oregon, Gabriel, and he got short. Well, he is, and he was dominated by Ohio State, and I don't see it. I've watched him play other games, and when he was at Oklahoma, and I just don't see it. And I know some people are high on him. I'm not. I don't know why some people are so gung-ho about him, but I'm not a real big fan.
The only thing you can guarantee in this draft is you can pick a running back in any round.
Well, that's what I want to lead
into. And
you'll
hit a home run.
That's what was my next thing is that I'm working on an article on the running backs in this draft. And I'll be having a new mock out here probably within the week, but I'm working on running backs. And in my first two mocks, I've mentioned Omarion Hampton and DJ Giddens. DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. Love both. Hampton's a beast. But I'm working on other article, talking about some of these other guys, the kid out of Iowa, Johnson. You've mentioned the guy out of Miami.
Oh, yeah.
Martinez.
Martinez.
Yeah. So I guess
Evan Neal out of Kansas.
Yeah.
The kid from Oregon, Jordan James.
Yes, Jordan James.
Two Ohio State kids.
We didn't even talk. Right.
You can't go wrong with a running back.
No, and even the kid from Arizona State who reminds me of Peyton Hillis. I'd like, what are like if you were the Browns? I mean, who are you? You already mentioned, what are you loving there? Martinez, you like? You said
depends on what round and where they fall. You can't go wrong.
Can you take two? Can you take two?
I think they're going to take two. Why not?
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you got two rookie quarterbacks on day 3 money. Mm-hmm. Yeah, why not? Okay. It's a devalued position. Also, tight end. Yeah. They're going to need another tight end behind Njoku. I mean, they could re-sign Akins. I I'd go a veteran as a backup, and then get you one of these talented tight ends.
Well, and then I mocked. I mentioned the kid from Bowling Green.
He's the second best. The Warren kid from Penn State is the one who's getting all the press. But Arroyo of Miami is good.
Yeah.
There's a kid in Iowa.
Iowa's always got. Yeah.
You can't go wrong with a tight end.
Sam, do you have a running back that you like down there in Texas, or somebody that you've been looking at?
I haven't really looked at running backs yet. I haven't looked into that. I've mostly been looking at defensive tackle, offensive line, and of course quarterback. I think running back would be a fun little pick, 4th, 3rd round. Might as well, right? These running backs seem to perform pretty decently if you just put them out on the field. I mean, you're not looking for the next.
Well, I'm assuming that Nick Chubb is coming back, but you're also saying, Sam, like he could, he's coming off of injury bug the last couple of years. So we're assuming that Jerome Ford
doesn't mean he's going to play more than 4 games, and that's the unfortunate part. I want him to play, but if he, in the NFL especially for running backs, it's such a terrible sport on your body. We saw it with Deshaun Watson. You misplace your heel while you're moving backwards, your tendons just tear. Unfortunately, that's just what happens. You can dislocate a hip moving wrong. It's so easy to injure yourself. And so, especially at running back, where you're playing the most physical part of the sport, where you're just running into dudes as hard as fast as you can. I think running back wouldn't be a bad selection if you're looking at like a 3rd or 4th round pick, but we'll have to see if Nick Chubb's physical comes back. Is he's healing really well? It looks like he's still just as strong as he always has been. Maybe don't, but I think taking a running back in the mid rounds isn't a bad idea.
Before we started our show tonight, and thanks again for listening to us on Apple, Spotify, or the Fanatical Elfz Network. The guys in Pittsburgh who do the Steel Curtain Network, Fans First, they were discussing like moves in this offseason. What would be a big move for like the Squealers? They were talking about them. What would you consider we'll start with you, Sam. What would be a big move this offseason, either with the draft or free agency or a trade? What kind of thing would perk your interest and like go, oh, and like, I'll just say this. I know Steve, you always mention this. The Browns always trade for a wide receiver, it seems like, or they make some sort of. So what would be a big move, Sam, first in your mind, or what kind of move? Or do you have
free agency could be fun. I mean, if they decide to figure out, if they like sign Sam Darnold somehow, that would be hilarious. I don't know if that's the best decision ever, but I think if they decide to trade down, if they trade Myles Garrett, get a high 1st round pick and whatever else they end up getting in the next few years, and then they decide to trade down and have this weird looking draft of like mid 1st, mid 2nd, and early 2nd, a bunch of weird picks, I think that could be fun. I think you could build like half a team around just the draft, but there's not a whole lot the Browns can do outside of Myles Garrett in the draft. I think right now, maybe if they decide to just never go quarterback the entire draft, that would be shocking to me, honestly. Even if they don't decide to just go for like a 3rd or 4th round pick, that would be kind of crazy if they just didn't go quarterback and wait until next year. But there's not a whole lot. It's not like we have $1 million. I guess $1 billion. $1 million is barely anything in the cap. But like $1 billion to spend on people. Yes. So there's not too much the Browns can do that's like crazy. But you could see like a big trade with Myles Garrett. You could see him go to the Lions and you pick up some pieces off of them, or you could see him go to a team who thinks they're right on the edge of being a contender, and you could pick off some pieces from them. I think what you get from Myles Garrett would be the biggest, if you decide to trade him, obviously, would be the biggest thing that would happen. Sam,
your voice this in this podcast, like I think you've got a high, like a deeper.
I've noticed that too. I don't know what it is.
Are you going?
It might be the weather.
Don't say it, John.
No.
I honestly don't know what it is.
John, don't go there.
I've been quote ill, not really ill.
I've
just been
sorry to hear that.
Up and down, but
it's probably the nasal stuff. Yeah, because you got all that.
Yeah, that probably stuff. Is what it is. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I've noticed that I'm like, man, my voice sounds really different, but I don't know what it is.
All right, Steve.
So what
A
crazy
big-
thing
Yeah.
could the Steelers do?
Well, that
Trade
was
up
the
and
yeah. That's
trade up
the,
to number 1 for a quarterback. That would be the craziest thing I'd ever see.
well, they started talking about like the coaching staff, or would there be anything, like I think last week, you and I were talking about Musgraves and how they changed their role for the Brownies. But are there any other moves that you think would be considered big or maybe surprise you, or what would be?
What, with the Steelers?
No, with the Brownies. I'm talking about the Browns. I want to know what
the Browns.
Yeah, we're
Nah,
not talking about the Steelers. I want to know what you think about the Browns. As far as
big
that
move the
was,
Browns
I
would
was
make.
just using the Steelers as like they were talking about it. So I want to see what you guys have to say about it.
Well, if I don't know, I just I hear things and I know things, and nothing really has surprised me that I've heard.
Mhm.
It would surprise me if the Browns took a quarterback at number 2.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest,
Yeah.
I'm not getting that vibe, and I don't think either one of these guys is a top 10 quarterback.
Mhm.
It's a bad draft for quarterbacks, unfortunately, and
Let me ask you this:
it's all about value and all about what Tennessee's going to do.
the hot word these days, or one of those phrases, generational player.
Oh, the Titans started that crap. I
It's
listened to his news
everywhere.
conference.
Everybody talks about it. Everybody
Well, that's
use.
the
They could
key
be a
buzzword.
generational. It's like, oh my God, like, yeah, I agree. Okay. So Abdul Carter, you and I both took Abdul Carter number 2 in our latest mocks.
Till I hear
Sam,
different, I'm going to take them in every mock I do.
yeah, and the guy Bill talked about in the show with Rod and Jeff yesterday, talked about the kid out of Colorado that I know, Sam, you like a lot, Hunter, right?
Travis Hunter.
Yeah, Travis Hunter.
And they were talking about how he'd probably be a defensive back, and because of how the NFL is, he'd probably have more success there to begin with, but they could insert him on the offensive. I think it would be a great pick too. I think if the Browns went him at number 2, I'd be like, cool. I think he'd be an exciting player to bring into this franchise. What say you about Hunter?
Hunter, yeah, he could be good. Again, problem is he's probably going to play wide receiver. It would be really difficult to play both positions in the NFL. I'm not saying he couldn't do it, but it is very hard to do so, especially in modern NFL. We see these things that people do, but again, you don't have a quarterback, and maybe you'll get a quarterback in free agency, right? Maybe in however long free agency is, we pick up Kirk Cousins or someone off the free agent market, and they perform decently. But at this moment in time, you don't have a wide receiver to actually throw, or a quarterback, to actually throw the ball to him. So he's not going to perform up to his highest level because there's no one really there to get him the ball.
So we have that problem.
Well, that'll be solved in free agency.
Okay, so Abdul Carter, Steve, you're going to continue to take him, and what just excites you about this kid? Like, why do you think?
Well, this was his first year playing defensive end. He has been playing linebacker.
Yeah,
and
right. That's a good point.
If you watched any of the game, and the kid is just a freak. And I know a lot of people have complained about his size, but you look at guys like Will Anderson. Carter's 6'3", 251.
Yeah.
Will Anderson, 6'4", 243. Max
Right.
Crosby, 6'5", 255.
Wow, yeah.
TJ Watt, 6'4", 252. Jonathan Greenyard, 6'3", 257. Micah Parsons, 6'3", 245. And these are guys who all had, 11 sacks, 7.5, 11.5, 12.5, 12. So, you can sit there and, find faults in anybody.
Yeah.
But the guy he's a freak of nature.
And then
he is.
Steve, both you and Sam agree. I think probably then, Sam, you said you've been doing some analysis of the offensive and defensive linemen. Steve, I think you took an offensive lineman in one of your pick 33 or something.
Both of mine.
Kid out of Oregon. Do you either of you
Or
really
the kid
like
out of Minnesota.
Yeah, Sam, do you have anybody that you've been looking at?
There's a tackle out of, I believe it's a tackle out of Texas who is pretty good. I think it's a pretty wide I guess board you could find of all the different people out there who are
Yeah.
good offensive linemen. I think again I said that guy out of Texas. There's a Will Campbell out of LSU. He's big. And then you have
the number
people
one.
like I mean I don't have my list pulled up. It's pulling up right now.
Donovan
You've
Jackson,
got
Ohio State, played guard and tackle this year. Did great at both.
Yeah,
that makes him instantly valuable with NFL teams.
What about Ohio State players on the defensive side of the ball? What like Jack Sawyer? A lot of people like him here in Columbus. He's a local kid, Pickerington High School.
He can go second round. I think the Scouton kid from Texas A&M and the kid from Marshall are probably your next two edges off.
Oh
the
yeah,
board
the kid from Marshall. That's right.
Yeah,
Sam,
Green.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get some final thoughts on this evening's wrap things up here. Sam, you have any final thoughts on this week? What you're looking forward as the combine starts this weekend or early part of next week? Correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Starts Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not much, honestly. It's the boring part of the season, so unfortunately there isn't a whole lot that you haven't covered that you have to cover. So I don't really have any final takes, unfortunately. There's just not much going on other than just sitting here and waiting for something to come up over something.
Yes. Okay. Steve?
I am interested in the underwear Olympics. I want to know who the Browns talk to, who they have up in their suites.
Yeah.
And discuss. That's always an interesting list. It gives you some kind of indication. You can add that to who they talk to at the East-West Shrine and the Senior Bowl. And then they'll put out their list of 30 players to invite to come to Berea, where you have a longer time to talk to them and let them tour the facility. We all know Sanders is already accepted an invite, but I'm interested in hearing who they talk to at the combine. I'm also interested in a little bit of this. The working on not the 100 meter or the 40. I don't really care about 40 times. You get workout warriors who,
Did you like Sanders? Did you guys?
You'll also be interested to see how much Travis Hunter really weighs and how big Sanders and Ward's hands are.
Yes. Now Sanders was caught talking with his buddies while they were playing Xbox or some PlayStation or something.
Oh, there's the deciding factor,
right?
That's it. The final.
He enjoys playing with the Cleveland Browns team on his game thing. So
in Madden, the Browns are a really good team. Nick Chubb is great. Obviously, you don't have injuries from Week 9 popping up. Deshaun Watson rating wise is pretty decent. We have a good wide receiver core, like I said. I mean, it's a pretty good. If you're playing with unupdated teams, you still have Amari Cooper. So I mean, it's a good team to play in Madden, honestly.
I love it. No, so I want to give a final shout out to my buddy David, who I work with at my school. He recently took a visit to Pittsburgh over the weekend, where he's a Browns fan. Now keep this in mind, but he was given the opportunity to tour the stadium there in Pittsburgh in the Steel City. And you know how much we love TJ Watt. So shout out to David, because when they were touring the stadium, I guess they got to go into the locker room or whatever. And supposedly they showed where TJ Watt's locker was. And David made sure to, stink up the joint. And knowing where, TJ's locker was. So I just want to give a shout out to Dave for being a diehard Browns fan and representing the Browns fan base well.
I don't want to know what he did.
No,
I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
David, I'm actually talking about you on the podcast, so you're gonna have to listen now on Apple or Spotify. Thanks everybody for tuning in to the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm John. That's Steve Gill, and there's Sam. They have great shows every week. Steve does his Dog Pound South show on Mondays, depending on when I get it published and out. And then Sam does the Browns breakdowns when he decides that he wants to text me and let me know that he's done a show on
Usually
StreamYard.
the
Then
next day, yeah. So
yeah. So thanks to these guys. We have such a great group of colleagues and people that do shows on this Fanatical Elves Network. We all have different takes, but we're all Browns fans just like you. And it just makes for a lot of fun. I hope you guys tune into the rest of our shows this week. We'll have a lot more coverage as we go into the combine, more conversations, see who the players the Browns are talking to up in the suites there in Indianapolis. Lots of other things going on. Myles Garrett. So stay tuned. Keep listening to our Fanatical Elves Network. Tell other people about our network, please. I beg you. We appreciate your love and support. I know, Posh and other people that are tuned in to this show and other shows like the Burning River Browns Talk tomorrow night with Lou Marconi and with our other host Sherry. We know there's some of you who are very faithful and watch our shows. So thank you again. Keep up doing that and pass along good tidings to others and tell people to follow the Fanatical Elves. Everybody have a great night. Go Brownies.
go Browns.
Go Browns.